Hey crochet crew, welcome back to another video from me, Crochet with Jerry, and this video is how to crochet the Burlap Sack Monster Hat. Now, as you can see in front of the camera, he doesn't fit very well, so I can't show you a proper picture of him. I'll try and zoom out just a little without shaking the camera too much. Here we go. So that is him in all his glory. So there are a few different things that you'll need for this project, and I will talk about the beige yarn shortly. For the eyes, the mouth and the stitching details, we just need to use any black DK yarn, really doesn't matter which. In fact, the reason that I'm not showing mine on camera is because I don't have one that's branded. It's just got a generic label on it. It came with several balls of yarn that came in one pack together. None of them have labels, so that's why I haven't shown you on camera. We will need 2 hooks for the project, and I've got my Clover and More hooks here, which are my favourite to use. They make everything so smooth and easy to use. So for the main part of the project, to make the hat, we'll be using a 5mm hook, which is classed as a H. And then for the details, the mouth and the eyes, we will be using a 4mm hook, which is a G. Also, be proud of me. Look what I purchased and have finally got again. I have some stitch markers. Please don't do what I did this week and drop them when you haven't done the lid up. Believe me, why, I don't think you even need to imagine how annoying that was. Having to go through and sort them all out into different sides and colours again. Really, really frustrating. It's like dropping a massive box full of Lego. Don't do it. So anytime you open one and take one out, close it up immediately. Don't do what I did. So we've got our 2 hooks and we've got our box of stitch, we've got our 2 hooks and we've got our box of stitch markers. And then as per normal, if you want to use a tape measure for any reason, keep one handy. You will require a darning needle to darn in your ends at the end and to also applique on all the details onto the hat as well. And I think that's everything. Oh, a pair of scissors. Make sure you've got a pair of scissors to cut your yarn as well. Apart from that, that's all we need. So I think we're ready to get going. Shall we start? Let's go. So tools wise, and what we'll need for this project, I've purchased the Yarnspirations Karen Simply Soft yarn, and this is in colour 9703. It's not perfectly right for the colour that I wanted, but there seems to be a shortage of aran or worsted weight thickness wool in shops at the moment. It's only really you can get online, and I didn't really plan this in advance because I'm not that kind of person. I see something and then I think, right, that's what I want to do. So we're just making do with this one. Just a tip while I'm here, if you look at the label on your wool or yarn, whichever you call it, it will more often than not tell you what size hook you need. It can be that occasionally that you have to change depending on what the pattern you're doing, if they want it to be a bit smaller or bigger, but on average this is the size hook that you will need. So we are going to go with what the wool says, and I've also got my 5mm hook ready here. But this yarn is super soft, and it is a worsted weight or an aran weight depending on if you're American or English. And we're going to use this one to make our hat, and it should give us a lovely soft hat. So let's get started. I've gone ahead and unwound some of my yarn. So we need to start off with a magic ring. I've shown this in a few videos already. You won't have seen it if you aren't following the subscription to the Disney Crochet Squares. But I have done it in one of the shorts. I will, however, show it in more detail here, and I will put a link to the short in the description if you want to keep referring back to that one. So we do this one by taking around 10 centimetres of yarn and make sure that the non-working side is on the right hand side here. If you pull that one down, we want to drape it over these two fingers, our index finger and our middle finger, and hold it in position with your thumb. You've got about the 10 centimetres of yarn there just hanging down. We want to go round the back of the fingers and then up the front again, and from this point turn your hand over and then put that into a cross, and you're going to go back down the back again, and from here you can use your fourth finger or your ring finger to hold that into place. Sorry, I'm just trying to manoeuvre my hand so you can actually see it on the camera. So from here, what we want to do is we want the hook to go under the top right part of the cross, and we want to grab that yarn opposite and pull it through underneath. Now we need to make a loop on our hook, which means we need to turn it up towards us, and that will then turn into that cross there that you can see. Now, this will not stay on the hook. That is not our working loop. We need to grab another piece of yarn and to pull it through the loop on our hook to secure it. So that piece of yarn there that our ring finger is holding down, we need to grab that one. So not the one here on the right hand side, we want the one on the left, the first one that we can see there. So we will go under that one, and then we will pull that through so it looks like this on our hook. Now I can tell you that is probably the most complicated stitch that I know that I've done in crochet, and it took me such a long time to master this. So if you found that really difficult, don't worry. Keep going over it and over it again until you get it. It will click eventually, I promise. So from here, you can remove your fingers from the loop. Then where our non-working yarn is, which is here, is currently going through the centre of the loop. You're better off pulling that one out of the middle. Otherwise it'll get caught. And then if you twist everything around, because as usual, you will need your working yarn on the left. And then if you pull that one, it will tighten everything on the hook as well. So as per normal, you've got your non-working tail there on the right hand side and your working yarn on the left. And then just keep that loop there in between your middle finger and your thumb on the right hand side. To begin with, before we close the loop, we're going to be working the stitches into the loop, pretending like this is your chain stitch. So just as an example, before I begin to explain the pattern, when we grab the first few stitches, we are going to be going under this one and pulling our working yarn up through that way, and then making a stitch from there. After completing our magic ring, we want to do 6 half treble crochets into the ring. Now bear in mind this is a UK pattern, so they are half treble crochets, which is also the equivalent of a US half double crochet, but don't get the two confused, otherwise we might end up with a rather strange pattern. So it is a UK half treble crochet we're using. Now we want to have our working yarn, as always, on the left hand side, so I've just got to switch that one over. You can pull on that one just to tighten it if you need to, and then we're going to yarn over, and then we want to go under the loop. So we've gone under the loop there, yarn over again and pull through, so we've got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again and pull through, and that is our first half treble crochet on the hook. We need 6 in total, so we need to do another 5. One, two, three, oh, this is so difficult with this hook. I do apologise. I've been using Clover and Moore hooks for such a long time and I couldn't find a 5mm, so I'm using this cheap hook and it is so difficult to work with. So how many stitches have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one more. And there's 6. I definitely know what I'm asking Father Christmas for Christmas, and that is a full set of the Clover and Moore hooks. So once we've done that, we've now got all our stitches that we need, and we need to turn this into a circle. So we do that by pulling on our non-working yarn. If you pull that one tight, everything will form into a circle. You can see you've got your V's there, and those are the ones that we're going to be stitching into. So that one's all tight from there. We're then going to do a slip stitch into our first stitch just to close this circle up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We've got our 6th stitch here. So we're going to slip stitch into that one. Yarn over, pull through, and then pull through again. And that is the end of our first row. You will notice over time that your circle in the centre will open up a bit. Don't be too concerned about it. You can keep pulling on your non-working yarn to close that one if you so wish. But at the end of the pattern, we will be sewing in the ends and closing that hole just to make sure that it stays closed at the end. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker into our first stitch here, just so we know where the start of each row is, and just to save things getting complicated. So I'll go ahead and do that one now off of camera. So we're now on to our second row, and from here we need to chain 1. And then we're going to work a half treble crochet stitch into each of our 6 stitches in the round. So yarn over, go through your stitch, pull your loop through so you've got 3 on the hook, yarn over again and pull through all 3. Number 1. Then moving to the other side of the stitch marker, so we need this stitch here. 1, 2, next stitch, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we've done our first 6 stitches of that round. We want to slip stitch into our first stitch, which is this one just here. And you can work that out by counting back around and counting back your 6 stitches, and 6 takes us to here. We will be skipping this portion just in the centre here, and this will give us the point to our hat. So if we go into this one and then pull your yarn tight, because we want to make sure that we are closing up those stitches at the back there in that gap. Pull your yarn through and then through this one and tighten up, and you will notice from there that it starts to form some sort of point. So now we're going to go on to row 5, and row 5 is to chain 1, which I've already done there, and from there we need to do 2 HTCs in each of the 6 stitches. So there's one into the first one, and then we're going to go back into that same stitch. And 2. So we will end up with 12 stitches at the end of the row. So 3, and 4, and then 5, and 6, ooh, 7, and 8, nine, and 10, and then our last 2 stitches need to go in here. 11, and 12. As always, we need to do a slip stitch into our first stitch, which is this one here. And you will do this for every stitch of the main part of the pattern until we change, I believe. And that is the end of row 5. Row 6 and row 7 are exactly the same. We are going to chain 1, and then we are going to HTC in every stitch all of the way around, so that is 12 stitches. I will do round 6 and round 7 and I'll come back. So once we finish row 7, everything should look kind of like this, which is a funnel shape basically. So we're going to go on to round 8, and I've already done the first stitch there, which is 1 chain stitch. I've already got that one on my hook, the extra one you can see just under my right thumbnail there. From here, slightly different, we're going to do 2 HTCs into 1 stitch and then 1 HTC into the next. So as an example, we're going to go 2 in this one and then 1, then 2, then 1. By the time we've gone all of the way around, we will have 18 stitches. So it's easier rather than going 2, 1, 2, 1, because you won't know where the start is. Just count your 18. As an example, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh, 1 second, I haven't got all of the yarn there, it's split. And then 18. As always, we need to go into the first stitch just there with a slip stitch. And that is round 8. For 9 and 10, we are just going to go all of the way around again. So that means chain 1 and same stitch, the HTC, all the way around. So you're 18 stitches, and do that twice. I'll meet you back when we're done. So I've just finished row 10. And then at the end, as per always, you should have slip stitched into the first stitch. From here, we're going to chain 1 for the start of row 11. And this row calls for 2 HTCs in the first stitch, and then a single and a single HTC. So it's 2 HTCs, single HTC, single HTC. And by the end of this row, we will have 24 stitches. So 1, 2, first single, 3, 4, and then we're going to repeat this going all the way around. Five, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, into the same stitch, 10, single stitch, 11, 12, double stitch, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, got there in the end, 18, 19, 20, last 4, 21, 22, 23, and 24. You can see there that our first stitch of the next row is quite a lot higher up, so I will just go across and go into that first stitch, and slip stitch that one, and then we can chain 1 ready for the next row. Rows 12, 13 and 14 are the same, which is just the same as the other times we've repeated rows. Rather than doing any increases, which are the doubles in the same stitch, we're just going to do single HTCs in each stitch. So we've got 24 stitches here. We just want to do 1 stitch in each row around to give us another 24 stitches, and do that 3 times. So that's row 12, 13 and 14, 1 stitch in each row around, and I will meet you back when I get to the end of row 14. So I'm now at the end of row 14, and we've now got something that resembles this shape, and it's beginning to grow in length. So row 15, apologies, I'm all tangled up here. So for row 15, as always, chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 stitches of the HTC into the first stitch, and then 3 singles, and by the end of this row we will have 30 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to repeat that going round. 6, 7, and then our singles, 8, 9, 10. I'll meet you at the end of the row. And so I'm at the end of row 15, and then as always I'm just going to slip stitch into our first stitch of that row. Bear with me, it is being difficult. There we go. So that's round 15 complete. Rows 16, 17 and 18 are like previous ones where we're just doing a single stitch, a single HTC in each stitch. So that'll be 30, then 30 and then 30. And by the time you've done those 3 rows, you'll be at the end of row 18. So I'm going to do those now and I'll meet you back when I finish row 18. Just remember with all of them to chain 1 at the start of your row and then slip stitch into your first stitch. So moving on quite nicely now, I can't even fit it all on the camera basically. We've just got to the end of row 18 and going to move on to row 19. And I'm sure you can figure out the pattern by now because it does repeat itself quite a lot. From here, it is you chain 1. And then we're going to do 2 stitches into your first stitch and then 4 singles. So that first stitch is always really, really tight. 1, 2. Oh, I've split my yarn again. Bear with me. There we go. And then 4 singles from here. And at the end of this round, you will end up with 36 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll do one more set. 7, 8 in the same stitch. 9, 10, 11, 12. Ooh, 12. So right, go all the way around, 36 stitches, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. So I've just finished row 19 and gone ahead and slip stitched to the first stitch of that row and then chained 1 as well. And just as before, rows 20, 21 and 22 are doing 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around, so that is keeping with our 36 stitches. I'm going to do those 3 rows and then I will meet you back here. So that's the end of row 22 for me. And for the next few rows, things are going to be a bit different in that we're not going to do the rows where we do 1 single stitch into each stitch for a while. We will come back to them. So the next few rows are going to be purely increase rows where we do 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So from here, we are going to do a chain 1, 2 stitches into our first stitch, and then single stitches into the next 5. By the end of this row, we will have 42 stitches, and then remember to slip stitch the end. So I'm going to do my chain 1, and then 1, 2 into 1 stitch, and then 5 single stitches. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So go all the way around for row 23. At the end, you'll have 42 stitches. See you shortly. So I have just finished row 23 there, and moving on to row 24, we want to chain 1, and then we are going to do 2 stitches into the first stitch, and then 6 single stitches. So 1 in the first, 2 in the first, and then first single, 3, 4, 5. Oh, need to pick up both loops. 6, 7, and 8. Once we've been all the way around this row, we will have 48 stitches. I'll meet you at the end. So now on to row 25. You should have 48 stitches as per the last row. For row 25, as always, chain 1. And then we're going to do 2 stitches into our first stitch, and then 7 single stitches this time, so continuing on with that pattern. Then for the next row, for row 26, it will follow on the same again, so it will be chain 1, 2 stitches in the first stitch, and then 8 single stitches. So just to repeat that, row 25, chain 1, 2 stitches, and then 7 singles, and repeat. Row 26 is chain 1, 2 stitches in the same stitch, and then 8 singles, which you repeat. When you get to the end of row 25, you will have 54 stitches. When you get to the end of row 60, and when you get to the end of row 26, you will have 60 stitches. So I'll meet you back when I've done both of those. So we've just finished row 26, now we need to do row 27. So as always, chain 1, 2 stitches into the first stitch, 1, 2, and then we're going to do 9 singles this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then starting back at the beginning again with our double stitch in 1 stitch, 1, 2, and then we will go on to do 9 singles again. I'll meet you at the end of the row. So that's row 27 finished. And then row 28 is going to be exactly the same as the previous few rows, in that we had an extra stitch after the increase and repeat. So it's chain 1, you double stitch into your first stitch, 1, and 2, and then 11 singles. At the end of this row, you'll have 72 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a bit stuck, this one, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just repeat that going all the way around this row. And as I said before, you'll have 72 stitches at the end. I'll meet you at the end of the row. So moving on to row 28, I've already chained 1. We're going to do our 2 stitches in the first stitch, like the last row, 1 and 2, and then single stitches in the next 10, and then repeat all the way around. So that's 2 stitches in the first stitch and then 10 single stitches, and repeat all the way around, and you should have 72 stitches at the end of your row. I'll meet you at the end. And we're now going to do exactly the same for each row for the next 10 rows. No increases, no extra stitches, nothing like that. Just repeat exactly the same for the next 10 rows. So all we're going to do is chain 1 and then a single stitch in every stitch all the way around. So we stick to the 84 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, So as always, we ended our last row with a slip stitch into our first stitch, and then we're going to start exactly the same way with a chain stitch. Now the way in which we're going to change things around is that we're going to stick with the same stitch, so the half treble crochet, but this time round we're going to do them front post and back post. Which, yes, I get, that sounds difficult, it sounds confusing, but it means that we get to create the ribbing around the edge of the hat. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So we're going to start off with a front post half treble crochet, and we do that by wrapping over the yarn as we would for the half treble. And we're not going to go into our V here as we normally would. We are going to go around the stitch, which is just here. So for a front post, we want to bring that stitch forward. So I'm going to put my hook in the hole to the right of it. And then I'm going to bring my hook out to the left of it. And you can see I'm bringing that post closer towards me, closer towards the front. I'm then going to yarn over and pull that yarn, if I can. It's always tight, the first stitch, just bear with me. Finally, we got there. And again, we've got our 3 loops on the hook. We want to then yarn over again. And pull through. And we've done our first front post. We're then going to go into a back post half treble. So yarn over. This time we're going to go the opposite way. So we want to go into this hole here. We want to go in through the back and then through the other side. And this way we have pushed the post backwards and away from us. We're yarning over again and pulling through, yarning over and pulling through. So we've just completed our first front post half treble and back post half treble. I'll show you how to do those again. So for the front post half treble, we want to yarn over and we're going to go around this stitch here just by my left thumbnail. So we're going in this side and around the back of it to pull it forward. Yarn over again. And now we've got 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over again. And that's another front post done. The back post, yarn over, go around the back of your work and through this loop. Push that stitch backwards. We're going to pull that one through, yarn over, pull through again. And you'll start to see this ribbing forming on your work. This one is forward, then back, then forward, and then back. We'll just do a few more. There's a front post. We'll do another back post. And another front. And another back. And hopefully it's clearer to see now where that ribbing is forming. So for this row, we need to take that all the way around, back to the start here, and then as always, slip stitch into your first stitch, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. So I've got to the end of that row, and then as always we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch. We're just going to do that by going into the V at the top, as we always would. And then we need to chain one. So we need to carry on with this row doing exactly the same as what we were for the last row. So more front posts, more back post stitches. And we will do it in exactly the same way as what we did before. Starting off with a front post onto this one, we can see that one's more forward, and then your back post, and then your front post again. We're not going to go into this big gap here because that is where our last row was. You want to go into this gap just underneath your V's. So you've got your V's there. We want to go into that hole here. So loop over and a front post to begin with. So in through this one, out through the other side. Pull our yarn through, yarn over, and pull all the way through. And then for a back post, we're going to go around the back and through here, through the other side, yarn over, pull through both, yarn over, and pull through all loops on the hook. Showing you a couple more, yarn over, through here this time, and through this side, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through all loops. Yarn over on the back and through this one, down the other side of that post, yarn over again and pull through, yarn over again and pull through. So here you will be able to see the extension on those first 4 stitches. You can see there's a little bit extra height on these. That one looks a little bit wonky, doesn't it? But we can see that we've got these lines forming of our ribbing. So we'll continue with this all the way around to the start of the row, back here again. And then we're going to do another row of it again. So finish this row, do one more, and then I'll meet you back here. So I've now done my 3 rows of my front post and back post crochet. This is currently the inside of my hat that you can see. So we've now finished the project. I have slip stitched to my first stitch there. So now we can go ahead and we can cut the end of our working yarn and cut a long enough tail to weave in at the ends. Go for around 20 centimeters. So I just put my hook in the hole and then I can yarn over and pull through that working yarn and pull as tight as I can. And then we've got the end of the yarn here, and those are the tails that we need to thread in. And then your hat should resemble something like this. I do apologise, it's a bit too big for what I'm using as my background for the filming. If you want to see the stitches up close, these are the stitches up close. But we have made this hat inside out for a reason. And now we need to turn it all the way the other way around, because our details of our eyes and our mouth will need to go onto the other side. So I'm going to do that now. So this is what it looks like once you turn it the right way around. You can see the lines on there that make it look more sack-like. The other thing that we need to do is, with most projects, we would have the seam going down the centre of the project. Not on this one, because we're going to cover up the details with the black lines. So I have got the seam on the side of my project. So congratulations on finishing your hat. I'm now going to move on to part 2 of the video, which is making the applique details for the monster's face and sewing in the ends of our yarn. So I guess I will meet you in the next video. Hopefully see you guys there. Bye!